Yeah, it's okay. Don't take the mic. So, welcome to our talk about FX-Clipse APIs that we developed as part of the FX-Clipse project, but most of them can be applied in any Eclipse 4 application that you develop, whether it's SWT or JavaFX, doesn't matter in the end. So, some words about myself. My name is Tom Schindel. I'm CTO of Best Solution, located Western Austria, Innsbruck. I'm a committer at various projects at Eclipse and the project lead of the FX-Clipse project at Eclipse. So, if you want to find out about me, that's my Twitter handle, my blog, and my company or corporate website.
And hey guys, welcome. My name is Elliot. I'm here to showcase something that we've built on top of FX-Clipse. I'm from a company called 360T, now part of the Deutsche Börse Group. We're looking at building a JavaFX trading application. So you can see my credentials here as well. My role in the project is more product owner, so my team, a couple of them are sitting here, they're doing most of the hard work. I'm just standing up here talking to you guys about it today. And my contact details are also here. If you're working on similar projects, I would also love to hear from you guys and maybe share some experience or for recruiting purposes.
Next slide.
Yeah. And Tom's been kind enough to give me the first sort of 5-10 minutes today to do a little bit of a demo of what we've managed to achieve, a little bit of our background and why we chose FX-Clipse and JavaFX, and what our collaboration was with their solution. So perhaps I can swap my solution.
Yeah.
So going back for us, like maybe some of you in this room, we had a very common and difficult requirement set. We have a very old looking application with parts of it based on Java Swing, and we wanted to upgrade some of this. You've probably heard it before. You want some sort of plugin architecture to support the growing number of trading, reporting, pricing, whatever it is in your business that you need to do. We needed flexibility in managing screen space, so multiple monitor setups for traders who are sitting on a trading floor, lots of competition for their attention and their trading business, and the ability for them to customize this layout and laying out their different types of trading application tools, reporting whatever, how they wanted to. We wanted more flexibility in design and customization. Coming from Swing, it was always a pain to try and do a new look and feel. Language support is becoming more relevant. We like to trade in English, but not everybody does. We would also like in the future to perhaps integrate with third party at a visual layer, and looking at how we could do this potentially also inside of the plugin framework. And for us, it was very difficult because we're looking at not 1 year, 2 years, new website, new Angular JS framework or whatever. We're looking at 5, 10, 15 years and trying to find a technology stack that would support us to do that. I said, so there were two main options in the market for us, JavaFX and HTML5. There are others, of course, but these are the two that we were discussing internally for quite a long time. We also started to build up a new UX concept. This is evolving currently with our development. So we're talking tabbed views, more like browsers, what people are used to, building up layouts, so some level of customization. CEO sometimes says like Tetris, but different building blocks, combining these into one layout. We wanted advanced controls for managing this whole shebang across multiple screens as well. So if a trader is doing something important and he needs to find out about something happening on another screen, we want him to find that quickly. We want him to be able to bring it to the front, switch his focus, continue his business. And for us, we also wanted a modern, flat design line. Everything's going flat. This is also fun to try and achieve in Swing. So a 360T of the future. So, we'll get back here. So it's starting to look a little bit like this in a design way. Actually, I missed one point, maybe it's interesting to you guys maybe a little bit about who 360T is. So 360T is a multi-bank trading platform. We serve mostly business-to-business customers, so doing foreign exchange, trading for corporates. I have to pay my staff as corporate A, and they all work in America, and I need $200 million US to do that. That sort of business you could come to our platform to do. So we have a user base probably of around 3,000 to 4,000 daily users, and maybe several thousand unique users per month. And this is spread out around the world as well. So it was quite a tough decision about where we go with this and what our technology stack should be. So I would say it was kind of the leap. So the technology stack to support an enterprise, what do we do? There's a lot riding on such decision. So I would say for a couple of years we were quite stalled internally. We were talking about JavaFX, HTML5, Java 8, App Store, who's going to be using what over the next 10 years. Unfortunately, we don't have a crystal ball, so we had to make a decision. We started some preliminary investigations with Eclipse RCP and JavaFX, and we hadn't talked to Tom at that point. We just took what he had. We tried to, custom roll some stuff. It kind of worked. It looked okay. In hindsight, it was not ideal. And then we had a prototype phase with JavaFX, Eclipse RCP. We actually worked together with Best Solution to get some best practice, architectural guidance, and other things. And so at the moment, we're looking at our first concrete feature. I would say a set of features starting to build up an application. And 2016, well, I can't give away too much yet. There should be some secrets for corporates. So perhaps just to mention to Tom, so as I said, we wanted to answer a lot of questions that we were worried about when we looked at RCP. Can my trading applications can't look like an IDE? What else is possible? How hard is it to customize Eclipse RCP? What about, hey, here's our grand concept of what the world should look like, can we do that? What about performance? What about OSGI, about dependency injection, all these other technologies? So there are also a lot of others, scalability and things that are on a technical side we were very curious about, and of course our business demanding languages and themes and make it pink with unicorns. There were lots of things coming up. So just a quick look at the application just for 5 minutes. I don't want to go into too much detail, it'll take too much of Tom's time. What you can see in front of you at the moment is what I would call a screen. The screen has some things you'll be used to, a menu bar, an application space, status, other information. What you can see across the top here, I guess in the application space you could say our concept of tabs or views. We did a bit of custom rendering stuff here together with Best Solution to get the look and feel we wanted. And also to add some customization of the behavior here. So these tabs, these views, they have a number of options. We can rename them, clone them, detach them completely from this window, and remove them entirely. So we can have a look at something like that. Features here are essentially plugins coming from Eclipse RCP, and we could potentially add a new feature to our view. Here we have a very sophisticated performance test, but I won't go into too much details. We also built up some sort of custom layout requirements for this, so we can actually, our customers can lay this out however they would like. So we did quite a lot of advanced stuff, and this was down to JavaFX, a lot of it. But of course the plugin architecture was still coming from their core RCP stuff. Alright, so this was one view. As we talked about, we are talking about traders who have many monitors, many trading tools. We started to talk about multiple screens and how we manage that. Bear with me with the resolution, it's a bit tricky. But of course, we wanted multiple screens, and we wanted smart ways to be able to manage these as well. So what we can see up in the top right corner, if you were looking closely, you will have seen screen controls have popped up. And actually we can see what is going on the other screens in terms of snippets, previews, And we can also do certain things like bring these to the front, switch tabs in the other screens, and continue working where we are. So these are the sort of things we could achieve with JavaFX and also on top of Eclipse RCP. And it was a lot less pain than we initially expected. And there are, of course, some drawbacks to all of this, but that's not what I'm here to talk about today. And I won't go into any more details. I don't want to take, as I said, too much Tom's time. Perhaps just for those of you who are curious, and so you know it is actually RCP, just a quick mapping between our 360T concepts and the Eclipse RCP ones. So the screen, of course, is a trim window, tab container, tab view is a part stack, features are parts that we can dynamically assemble in the application model as part descriptors, and menus are just menus. As I said, there is some custom rendering from these standard Eclipse RCP components to JavaFX, but it's also possible to customize these with the e-fx-clipse stuff and the custom renderers that some of you were here for the previous presentation as well and saw that. So from my side, that's it. Thank you for listening to me. If you're curious about what we're doing, as I said, please come and talk to me. A lot of time to discuss it, and yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Mac. Perfect. So you showed the cool stuff that we have built, or 360T built on top of f(x-clipse. Now it's time to go how they build it, what API do we provide to allow you to implement applications like this. And building applications, the first thing whenever I get to a company, the first thing is we look at architecture. And Eclipse 4 is built on services. Your application should be built on services as well. It makes no sense that you build an application on top of a service container and use a monolithic big thing there. Write services, adopt the service pattern. That's important. And the really important thing to me is that the first thing I said to them is, write your business logic code without any dependency on Eclipse 4 APIs. That contradicts itself to some level, but it's really important that your business code has no framework dependencies, because then you can move it to any other framework as well. You are not bound to Eclipse 4, and this can be achieved with APIs that I'm going to present in the next 20 minutes. That's the important fact. That's the architecture we have to keep in mind. All we try to do here is always keep our references to the Eclipse framework as 0 to very minimal, and only stuff that we can mock easily should show up in our own code base. The first thing that we have as part of our library are some helpers. So if you, for example, look up an OSGI service in the service registry, this is the code that you would run. Your code depends on OSGI, your code has to do null checks. We have a utility for you that you can call. This is how you look up a service with our APIs. No dependency on OSGI. It uses the optional in this case from Java 8, because you can have null as a return value. The service is not there. You get null. You don't need all the null checks. This allows you to write much more cleaner code together with the Lambda expressions from Java 8 and our APIs. So next thing, working with exceptions. So I was working a lot with the GDT APIs, and they always throwing checked exceptions all the time. So this makes your code unreadable. This is when the system goes down. I want to clean up. The only thing I have to do with the exception is catch it and log it. That makes no sense. So we have invented an API which is a runnable, throws, a throwable, and then we have an executor which we can use to make the code look like this with method references in Java 8. This makes your code much more concise and does exactly what you expect it to do. It catches the exceptions and logs it to the system logger. Next thing. Who is in here who has ever written a P2 update for their application? It's a mystery why there cannot be an API where I simply call update. I have to write 100 lines of code to get an update working with P2. Why isn't there an API where I call check for update, and then if that completes, get an update? Okay, the P2 API is much too low level. So we have an update service. This is how you specify an update for P2 update in FXClipse. Adding updates to your application is no more than 3 lines of code. So you check for the update, you get on complete, you get a result, and if this result is okay, you run the real update. Done. No more P2 APIs in your code base. Next thing, command execution. So FXClipse, E4 defines a command service and a handler service. The problem is that the command service exposes to us core commands. I told you, I don't want to see any Eclipse code referenced in my code base, so it's impossible for me to execute a command without referencing Eclipse 4 code. That's the problem you see here. So when I want to execute the command, I need to create a parameterized command and then call on the handler service execute this command. That makes no sense. It isn't as simple as simply executing a command. That's what I want. So we have a service. Well, first thing, disapproved by Tom because you are referencing Eclipse stuff in your own code base. That is forbidden. So we have a very, very thin command service that exposes none of the Eclipse APIs. All it exposes are string, optional, that's it. So writing the code now comes to something like this. Yes, you reference FX core command, but FX core command can be easily mocked in your application because it's that simple. It doesn't expose any OSGI or core command internals. Nothing. That's the important fact. If you require a service somewhere, it should be easy to mock. It should not present arbitrary types from other parts of the OSGI system. That's the key point here. Next topic that we looked at and we need for our application is logging. Don't know who has written Eclipse 4 applications, but you get the logger there, of course. But this logging API is in a state that is not acceptable. Don't use that logging API. It's a wrong approach. What we thought about is we don't even want to have any external dependencies on any external code, not even SWT4G, so we create our own facade. Whether you use that or not is not my business. But we internally use it and make it available to you as well. We wanted that if you configure a logger for your system, say I'm using log4j, the FXClipse system, like with SLF4J, it would as well logging through the same framework your application is logging through. That's the important fact. So how does it look like? Our logger, we can inject a logger. We have things like printf formats, and we have the way to assign lambda expressions or a supplier in this case. So in normal Java code, you have if debug, then you do the debug calculation, and this is a check that simply gets lambda expression, and in the second area, you would do the calculation of some complex stack information, I don't know what, in the end. You see, we are using a lot of Java 8. All our APIs are for Java 8. We don't support Java 7, Java 6. That was a decision we made last year that we will go Java 8 straight. So all our APIs are retrofitted and are accepting, in most cases, lambda expressions or SAM types, single abstract method types. If you are in the OSGI component, we have a factory that allows you to create a logger. Same thing. If you're not in a dependency injection container, then this is the way you get access to a logger. Events. Oh, we have the event broker. A very good idea in principle. The event broker is very good. So the problem is that, as well as all Eclipse stuff, they don't do package versioning. So you can only do a require bundle to get a certain version of your event broker. And the problem is really that it publishes in its public API event handler. This guy is from org OSGI service event. So if you happen to publish events in your custom code, you get a direct dependency on event handler from the OSGI system. So I brought in OSGI into my small UI component without any need, only because I wanted to publish an event. That makes no sense. This is the dependency graph you get at the very moment you access in your custom code event broker. That's the transitive dependencies that you rely on. Just because you wanted to publish an event. That makes no sense. Sorry. Disapproved per time. This can't work. So we invented our own event bus API. We are versioning all our packages, so we can do package level imports with versions. First important thing. It's a very simple interface, and it does not expose any OSGI APIs. So at the very moment you depend on event bus, no OSGI stuff is exposed to you. That's important. It has two publish method and one subscribe method. And a very important fact is the event broker is not type safe. Event bus is a type safe system. So we'll see in a moment what that means to us. And we have for non-OSGI applications, we have an implementation of this guy on the Guava event bus implementation. So you can run your code inside and outside of OSGI. So when we look at event topics, well, that's the code that you would write with Java 8 when you do event handling. So you subscribe to something, to a topic, which is solely a string. Read the code, everything looks okay. Until you find out that event broker send is sending hello world, and handle event is expecting along. This means that the receiver would have a class cast exception. It would have expected that along is sent out to the event bus, but you're receiving along. Because there is no type safety built into the event broker. Everybody can send any type of event through this guy. So we replace that with a placeholder topic, and this guy is typed. That's important. So when I try to write code like this for publishing, the compiler will step in and say, man, you are trying to send out a string, but the type system tells me this has to be a long, so you get a compile error when you send out wrong information to the event bus. Then for event handling, the same thing is true. The simple handle event, you get an event which is typed of too long. For the topic, you only for sure know that the type is correct. Type system takes care of the event system, which is not possible with default event broker from Eclipse 4. Finally, you can make your code with static imports. The handle method has to know about the event. You can use the data method from the static import to really get, in this case, a consumer of type long, which is wrapping an event of type long and calling this method for you. So this is the code you finally end up with subscription. Type safe, small, concise. No OSGI dependency. Next topic. The IEclipseContext. That's my most preferred construct in Eclipse. So it's the center of the dependency injection container. Once more, it's the central point of the dependency injection container. This means if you reference this guy, you're binding yourself to the central part of the Eclipse 4 dependency injection container. Once more, why? Why on earth do you do that? Retrieval is easy. You simply put some at injects and the value gets injected. The hard part comes if you start publishing stuff yourself. So first thing you need to know, in which context are you publishing? So your cool decoupling of all the components gets, it's okay, but it's a problem that you need to know where to publish something. That makes no sense. There is API in Eclipse that allows you to make this your own code agnostic of that. And the really program, and once more, that's why it's disapproved per Tom. Your code gets a reference to the IEclipseContext, which is a core service part of the dependency injection container. So stop thinking about the IEclipseContext as a map of key value pairs. What you need to do a mental shift is that you think about a key value slot in the IEclipseContext as an observable value there. It's nothing more, dependency injection does nothing more than creating a sophisticated observable of this very key value pair in your IEclipseContext. And if you start thinking about that, you can abstract all this stuff, and instead of getting like IEclipseContext for publishing, you can come up with a context-bound value interface that allows you to retrieve the value and to publish the value. From the dependency on the core part of the IEclipse dependency injection container, you got to this interface, simply by doing the mental shift of treating a slot in the IEclipseContext as a key value pair. You see, it's adaptable. That's interesting. First, if you want to do injection for publishing, inject and the context value, that's the key in the context that you're observing, but it's adaptable, so the adapter system allows you to adapt this guy directly, for example, to an IObservable value. So now your code in your code base only depends, for example, on Eclipse data binding, or in JavaFX on a property. So we have adapters that allow you to adapt the context-bound value to IObservable value to property. This is part of the adapter system, part of FXClipse. So we got rid of the IEclipseContext. Next problem, preferences and UI state. So when we look at preferences, there are two types of preferences. Preferences that capture non-UI state. For example, my compiler setting, or I don't know. And for UI state, for example, the currently selected element in a tree. So looking at a UI like this, then the preference store deals with the directories that I have added to this tree. And the UI state is stored in the selection in the M-application element. So state persistent in Eclipse 4, once more, you have an annotation called addPreferences. addPreference, it supports simple values in string, blah, blah, blah. But when we want to start publishing stuff, we get once more a dependency in IEclipsePreferences. Our code base, our small UI code base, once more has the problem that it references a very deep down structure in the core preferences of the OSGI container, or in this case, Equinox, in the end. This is the dependency graph you get at the very moment you reference IEclipsePreferences. Once more, disapproved, but how? Because of that. Let's look at the UI state. Well, it's a map of strings, so you can only store strings in there, so you have to encode all the data structures, whether it's an int or a tuple or something, as a string value. And it gets you not really a dependency on EMF, but if you look at the require bundle graph with exports and re-exports, you see referencing this guy references the central unit of the Eclipse 4 application framework. That's the application model. Once more, your code cannot be decoupled from the Eclipse 4 framework anymore. At the very moment, you use that as a storage structure. Disapproved. So what can we do? So we came up with our own preference. I cannot really change the Eclipse framework with published APIs, so I had to come up with my own preference. But this preference annotation supports storage of complex values by simply pushing them to JAX-B and doing serialization. So I can store the list, I can store a person object, whatever I can serialize with JAX-B. It's pluggable, so if you don't like JAX-B, use your own serializer. It by default allows me to store value types like a big decimal, an instant, I don't know, all the basic value types that you have in the Java system. Something, most of the time, something that has a value of factory method as a value type. And it injects a placeholder once more instead of getting access or needing access to IEclipsePreferences with all its dependencies. I get once more a very slim interface injected that allows me to do the publishing and retrieving. For UI state, we have an interface called Memento. No external dependencies. Allows pluggable storage of complex values. And now let's see a sample for the preference. This is how it would look like with Eclipse preferences. And the first thing that you should notice is there's an NPE ahead. If nobody ever set routers, you get a null here, for example. If you change that to our preference story, you have to point to the key. We get a value object that has only two methods, get and publish in the end. Once more, it implements the adapter interface, so it can be adapted once more to iObserver value, to a property. All this stuff is there by default. Remembering tiers is you do the publish method, the same thing that we did before. And when we want to have, or want to get a value injected, we have the possibility to define the default value here. So this makes the null check that we normally would do in there not needed anymore, because if the value is null, we get an empty string. And even cooler is we can not only store real values, but also a list of values, a list of persons, a person, a date, date time, an instant, everything that we have serializers for. For my state, the situation is very equal. We have the my state example here. Once more, NPE ahead. If this is the first time, we will get an NPE here because we're accessing a value that is not yet stored. But the story is the same. You have the memento has a get. You have a default that you can pass on if it's null. You can store the string. And if you really want to store more complex information, you can pass a serializer that does the serialization and deserialization for you. Last part, you saw that in the demo from Matt. No, you haven't seen that. So this is now JavaFX specific, but this is a very cool service that we introduced in the last or 2 versions ago in e-fx-clipse. It allows you to open Lightweight dialogs. So to open a dialog, somewhere on the system you have a modality scope, whether this guy should be modal on the window, on the perspective, or on a part. And usage for that is that you simply get in a handler this guy injected and open the dialog. This looks like this when you see it running. So, for example, a new project, to see we have some animations going on. That's a modality scope of window in this case, but it shows you a window that flies down. The background is darkened a little bit, and you can make use of all this cool JavaFX technology with animations, theming, and all this stuff as part of your application. So, I'm out of time. I would have been able to talk 1 hour more on all the APIs that we invented at e-fx-clipse. So, I hope you enjoyed that, and you can use these APIs. We ship them as part of our releases. And they are stable. We are not breaking any compatibility. We really have the same rules that Eclipse and the platform has. The only thing is we release in 6 to 8 week cycles, which means you get very fast access to new APIs. Okay, thanks for listening. Finally, Matt said they are hiring, so if you are interested in becoming a part of his team, doing cool stuff with the financial trading industry, get in touch with him. And I'm now open for questions.
Just one code question, why was there a constructor injection instead of a field injection?
Generally speaking, I'm a friend of constructor injection, well, because it's for the dependency injection container is cheaper. It doesn't have to remember to do re-injection. So if I expect that the value is not changing, then I use constructor or post-constructor injection. But you need to take very good care where you do that. For example, one of the biggest faults I've always seen in applications is that people inject the e-part service in the constructor. This is wrong. E-part service is something that is calculated on the fly, and it can change for the life cycle of a part. If you move a part from window A to window B, the ePart service is modified at this point. So you need to take extra care when you use constructor injection. But I'm a friend of that. Okay, more questions?
How do we get rid of the IEclipseContext context on a make? If you make a new object.
We make another, the only option that I have, well, if you come to my talk tomorrow, I'll show you examples how you can get rid of that with context, with the help of context functions. Okay, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it.